You're listening to Northwoods Church Matters, a podcast of Northwoods Church in Evansville, Indiana, where we discuss why the local church matters and things that matter to the local church. I'm your host, Matt Higgins. On today's episode, we're going to talk to our student ministry assistant, Rachel Clark, about teens and technology. And we're going to answer your questions that you submitted via Facebook about teens and technology. We're going to talk about popular apps for kids. We're going to talk about dangerous apps for kids. And we're going to talk about celebrity culture and how it's impacted Instagram. All this and more on today's episode of Northwoods Church Matters. All right, well, welcome back to the podcast. And I'm here with Rachel Clark, our student ministry assistant. And our topic for today is one that's highly requested by parents. And I have lots of conversations in student ministry with parents about this topic right now. It seems like, I'd say this is, not scientific, but 9 out of 10 conversations I have with parents are about technology, phones, iPads. What do I let my kid do with my phone? Those type of conversations. And so today we would just want to answer some questions about teens and technology to try to be helpful to you about what's going on. And we're actually going to answer some of your questions. And if this is helpful for you guys, we'll try to do this again another time, perhaps on this topic or maybe another topic. But let's go. So what's the first question?
The first question we have is, what are the biggest concerns that families in church have about technology?
Wow. Well, I'd say 3 things. First is screen time. Most kids are attached to their phone surgically.
Absolutely.
And the average teen spends 7 hours a day looking at their screens. That's a per Common Sense Media study from 2018. And I think that statistic's probably going to go up and up and up. Kids look at their phones hundreds of times per day. And there's a movement actually in the next generation, Generation Z. Less kids are actually watching TV and more kids are watching YouTube, TikTok, things on their phones. Yeah. You ask any kid, how much time have you spent watching YouTube per day? It's a lot.
Yeah, my students today were talking to me about this, and they spend like 6 hours on YouTube or TikTok alone. Just those 2 apps, just between the 2 of them, 6 hours. I was like, oh my gosh, that's insane.
Yeah, I mean, it's literally not uncommon for a student to tell me, I started watching YouTube, I just was watching dumb cat videos, and suddenly it's 2 hours later. I mean, there's a lot of time.
And that's a day that they're at school too, and they still have 6 hours of like media face-to-face, not including the screen time they have at school with a computer.
Yeah.
It's a lot of time.
Pretty crazy. And I think the second thing that parents are concerned about is just sexual activity on phones. The statistic is that the average age when someone first sees online pornography is now 11 years old. And that's so average. Sad. It is very sad. And by average, we mean there's kids that are younger than that have seen online pornography. It's just astounding. And so we have an entire generation of kids whose sexual habits are shaped by online pornography. They don't know what real sex is. It's just based on their viewership of pornography over time. And it's just really sad. It's having a negative impact. But then go along with that. I mean, sexting is just huge.
For sure.
It's part of the normal dating relationship for Generation Z right now. And I wish I had some statistics on this, but statistics are all over the map in terms of how many kids are sexting, because you ask kids this and you don't really get an honest answer from them. So there's not a lot of good statistics out there.
Yeah, and it's hard to even monitor because you have so many students that are sexting not just through iMessage, but a lot of them use the other apps that are out there, which we're going to talk about. But I mean, they're using not just text messaging like, we may be familiar with, or our listeners may be familiar with, but they're using other apps to do so. So sexting is not just a text, it's other things.
Right, and they're being savvy about it. I mean, they're using ways that aren't going to be traceable or recordable, like Snapchat, or even something like Skype or FaceTime. I mean, things that aren't going to have, a permanent picture taken about it. Kids are very savvy about this. Right. And the third thing that I think parents are concerned about is just online predators. When I do this seminar on this topic, I tell parents that one of the big differences between Generation X, my generation, and Generation Z, the generation coming up, I mean, my generation thinks it's weird to make friends online.
I still think that's weird.
Yeah. But you talk to any kid in middle school, they will tell you that they have online friends, people that they've never met before, but they met somewhere online and on Discord or Snapchat or some places like that. And they consider them to be just as much of a friend as somebody that they know in real life.
That's right.
And so the stranger danger really is out there.
It's scary. I had a student a couple years ago tell me that he was going to go meet one of his friends that he met online in real life for the first time here soon. And I was like, that makes no sense. What do you mean you're going to go meet someone you don't know? And a lot of parents are letting their kids do this without even a parent being there. They just like will go drop them off and then have no idea who they're meeting. It's scary.
Yeah. And I think parents should be scared. And let me scare the pants off you a little bit more, because I have numerous parents, and I mean numerous parents, that have allowed their kids to meet in real life somebody that they met online, and it turned out to be a casual sexual encounter. And the threat is real, y'all. And so just watch out for that.
It's how sex trafficking can start.
Exactly, for sure. So as a public school teacher, that's your day job.
That is my day job.
What are your biggest concerns about technology, and what do you see in the schools right now?
Well, right now, our first group of students that I have currently as 8th graders are exposed to Chromebooks more than any other class that I've had. And they're even just academically, like their academic level is so much lower than what we've seen in all of the years past. And that's a huge difference completely. And so that's been hard. The other thing that I see a ton is they're comparing like me to you a lot quicker. So whereas beforehand, like people would have to come face to face in order to kind of compare and see like, oh, you're better than me, or oh, I'm better than you, kind of a thing. But now it's happening instantaneously, and it can happen like literally through the phone. And then that kind of produces the FOMO, the fear of missing out, because I'm scrolling through Instagram or I'm scrolling through Snapchat stories and or scrolling through whatever it is, and I'm seeing something that I wasn't invited to. And so then that drama that happened on the phone is now brought to the school. And so then that's been kind of hard. And it's just spreading negativity faster because of all of that. You can instantly, say what you think to someone instantly, and then that's can get spread around this school. And then like just the amount of time that students are spent. And this is like, I think the saddest thing that I see is like in the morning, I have gym duty. And so I'll go into the gym, and the only thing that you see are students out with their phones, and they're glued to their phones. And it's not like they're communicating face to face. They're not having a conversation face to face. All they're doing is like looking at other people's TikToks or looking at other people's Snapchats or sending all of their streaks and all of that stuff. And they're not actually having a conversation with the people around them. And it's just sad. It's isolation instead of community.
Yeah, and that brings up another thing that I think is a major concern for parents. And that is, I think the connection between anxiety and depression and screen time is real.
Absolutely.
And kids get on Instagram and they see a false reality. They see other people's false reality, and they try to create for themselves a false reality that everything's wonderful and perfect in their life. But then they see other people's Instagram feeds or their TikToks or whatever they're posting online, and they think to themselves, man, I wish my life was as good as this other person. But little do they know that that other person has a false reality too.
That's
They're
right.
trying to live up to other people's standards. And it's growing a generation of kids that are just overly anxious, overly depressed. And statistically, study after study has proven this out. The reason, one of the big reasons why we've had such a crisis in mental health in our children nowadays is screen time.
Yeah. So that kind of goes to our questions from the parents. What are the most popular apps for our teens? Like, what are they using?
So just looking at statistics from Pew Research in 2018, 89% of teens use YouTube.
I believe that.
Yeah, they're all on YouTube. They watch different people. They have certain channels that they follow. 72% use Instagram. 69% Snapchat, and 51% use Facebook. And if I had to guess about if they did the same study in 2020, I would bet that Snapchat is probably considerably higher.
Yeah.
And probably higher than Instagram right now.
And then TikTok, we know, doesn't, like, that's not a part of this, but it's completely blowing up right now. All of our students are on there. And just like I was saying earlier, my students at school use TikTok more than even they use Snapchat because they're on it so much more.
Yeah, TikTok has just exploded greatly. And this is one of the things that's really hard with tracking teen use on phones right now, is that an app will just come out and then explode and suddenly everybody's on it. And then sometimes it'll just as quickly fade away without much advent, and it'll grow in popularity and decline in popularity. So it's hard to track.
And notice that Twitter's not even on there.
No.
And so that's dying art now for sure.
I think Twitter was like 30% or something like that.
Okay.
And the odd thing about Facebook is that the only reason kids are on Facebook is for professional reasons.
That's right.
Because they know that they need Facebook in order to connect professionally for the real world and jobs one day. But they don't really want to be on a platform where their grandma's on.
That's right.
And so the whole okay boomer type of theme is real. They don't want to be online with the boomers.
Okay, so just so I know that our listeners know, what exactly is TikTok?
Okay, so TikTok is a platform that is a place where you can do 3 to 15 second videos and post them online. Mostly it's lip syncing a song or doing a dance and then posting it online. But there is a lot of not suitable for work type of content that's on TikTok. So you've got to watch out for TikTok right now.
That's right. I think a lot of the music that's in the background of TikTok is one of the reasons why it should be avoided, which leads into our next question. What apps should be avoided?
So I'm going to be a little controversial here. I mean, because we just said that Snapchat is one of the most popular apps for teenagers. And I'm going to tell you the number one app that your kids shouldn't have is Snapchat. Because Snapchat, look up the history, Google it in terms of why Snapchat was developed. Snapchat was developed for sexting. That there was a bunch of people that wanted to figure out a way, how can I sext but not have it tracked on my phone? And the answer was inventing an app where there is what's called disappearing content, where you can post something and then you set a time frame for how long it is posted online, and then it disappears. And that is perfect for teenagers or adults to sext one another. I mean, you just post something and then after a set time frame, poof, it's gone. And so if that doesn't sound scary, it should be, to know that your kids have the ability to post something and then it disappears. And then you as a parent, it's difficult to keep up with what they have been posting online.
Well, and I don't even think that it's just the picture messaging back and forth that they can go on. A lot of people don't know that they have like channels on Snapchat.
Yeah.
And so like Cosmopolitan is on there. There's news on there, but our students are not watching the news when they get on Snapchat. They're looking at the latest and greatest like sex positions and all of that stuff, because that's what the students are talking about at school. They want to know what can they get a hold of. And a couple of years ago, they were having a porn after dark, or like an after dark thing, and it was a channel on Snapchat. It was like a huge ordeal because a ton of people started deleting the app because it was like it was free porn after a certain time that they would post it on Snapchat, and they Snapchat did take it down. But that was like after that got published on Snapchat, I like deleted the app and haven't gone back. But it's that serious. Like that's exactly like what it's used for, people to send messages and then for them to find all of these different ways to have sex. And the location services that are available through Snapchat is insane. You can get on the map and you can see exactly where your friends are in the world. Like if we were in Ecuador and we were logged in under Wi-Fi, people would see that if we were in like through Snapchat.
Yeah, and disappearing content leads to other problems. It can lead to bullying.
Right.
You can post something, you can talk trash about somebody else, and then it disappears and it can't be tracked, or you just want to say nasty things about other people. I mean, it just leads to all sorts of problems. And it's really impossible for parents to regulate. And what was interesting about Snapchat is that at some point in time, they tried to rebrand themselves. And that's when the filters, the fun filters, you've seen the dog face type of things. And that's when that started, that Snapchat was trying to brand itself to younger kids because that's where the real market is. And as a result, there's a generation of people that have no idea that this is the reason why Snapchat was developed. So stay away from Snapchat.
And I'll just throw out a different note on Snapchat that's not just about sexting, but what I think it was 2 years ago, the entire like all of the gun threats that were going down, all of those were done through Snapchat. It was, have you
Wow.
seen this? And what was happening, all of the students kept screenshotting the Snapchat and then they were posting it to their stories. And then if you post something about a gun threat on your feed, then you get targeted. And so then they have to keep going back, like as the police, like they have to keep retracking and retracing where to find all of these different posts. And like you said, the parents and to the police, it is nearly impossible for anyone to regulate where these things are stemming from. And so it's so difficult. It's terribly dangerous.
But I think there's a lesson to this that you can teach your kids. And the lesson is that the internet is forever. And that if somebody really wanted to get a hold of your stuff that you posted on Snapchat, like law enforcement, they can go to Snapchat headquarters, and Snapchat does keep in a server somewhere every single thing that you have posted
That's right.
on Snapchat.
That's the I agree to this content that everyone checks the
Exactly.
box and no one ever really knows what's in that box.
Yeah, I mean, if your teenager is deluded enough to think that they really can post something and it disappears forever and no one's ever going to see it again, boy, they are wrong. I mean, it's just scary. Another thing that I think parents should watch out for is just TikTok. And we've talked about this before. There's a lot of young kids that want to get on TikTok right now for the lip syncing and some of the fun stuff that's on there. Because if used correctly, I think TikTok can be a fun place.
For sure.
But there is a lot of stuff that's on there. Like I try out stuff so you don't have to. One time I opened up TikTok and the first thing that came up on TikTok was something about erections. I mean,
oh my gosh.
it was just, I couldn't believe that was the first thing that came up. I'm not searching for that stuff,
Right.
but it just came up. But the problem for me is that, as I mentioned, that there's a lot of apps that just get generated really quickly. They come up in popularity, grow up in popularity quickly. They cause problems, then disappear quickly. For example, there's an app that came out, I think a couple years ago. It's called Saraha, and it was a way for you to post questions about yourself, and then people can anonymously give feedback and honest answers to that
I
question.
think Ask FM was the same way.
Yes.
And those are some like similar things that still go on. I think my biggest concern as far as like the apps that go on in the world is just simply how much time that our students are spending on it, because that's influencing them one way or another. And that time is time that they could be doing so many other things, but they're getting like their brains are getting poured into. I know we didn't talk about this, but Pinterest is another one of those apps that probably a lot of our girls probably lean more towards. But that's another one where they're looking at all of these different people and wanting to be like them.
Yeah.
So it's just hard. Okay. So.
And it's interesting that you mentioned Pinterest, because like both my wife and my daughter had Pinterest at one point in time, and how they used those were completely different, because how my wife used Pinterest was looking up craft ideas for the house and for Puggles, our 2 to 3 year old group that we have here at church. And how my daughter used Pinterest was exactly what you said, looking up celebrity idols and looking up people and realities that you want to be like, and envisioning what you want your life to be like and fantasizing about that. It really was unhealthy. And so we got rid of that.
Okay, so speaking of getting rid of apps, is there a way to disable apps like Snapchat and Instagram without deleting them?
There is. I mean, you can deactivate the account of any particular app. But honestly, the reason why there's a deactivation feature on most apps is that the developer wants there to be kind of a buyer's remorse. They want you to be addicted to the app, and they have this feature. Are you really sure that you want to delete your app? You can just deactivate it, and they want you to come back to the same content. My advice to parents is that if your teenager is having a problem with an app, delete it.
That's right.
Get rid of it. Just bite the bullet. And if your kid has like a really big FOMO, fear of missing out, that you're deleting a particular app, you need to have a conversation with them about what FOMO is really all about, and that we can have our best life in Christ, and we should desire to be like what Christ wants us to be, and not what other people want us to be.
Yeah, I think that's huge.
All right, so this is a question for Miss Rachel. So this is about Instagram, and a parent asked, how can parents help their kids interact with celebrities online? And the term for this, if you've never heard this before, is influencers. That on Instagram, the people with like millions of followers are called influencers, and obviously because of the influence they have. And the biggest influencer in the world is Kylie Jenner, who has done nothing with her life except accumulate lots of followers on Instagram, and people will pay her to make posts about certain products and certain things, and she gets paid $1.2 million per post to influence kids.
It's insane.
It's insane.
It's insane.
So how do you interact with influencers and stay sane?
Well, I don't know if you can stay sane, Matt. I think the whole premise of it, like you said, is it's the new version of celebrities influencing you. Like a few years ago, maybe 10 or 20 years ago, you would see a commercial with a famous actor or actress in it, and then you would want to go and get that. Now it's through Instagram or through other social media networks where you have all of these influencers, and they aren't always famous. So not all of them are Kylie Jenner. Some of them are very low key, unnamed people, just like everyday people who have a certain and have gotten a certain amount of following. And then what's happening is their job is to influence others to buy a product. And so they are given discount codes to get you to buy things. I have a couple that I follow, but I think the key thing for anybody who's wanting to follow an influencer is, what do they represent? I think that should be the key question. If what that person, so Kylie Jenner, does she represent what it looks like to model Christ? And I think if that answer is no, then why are our students wanting to follow them? Yeah, I think it's like if Paul had an Instagram, I think he would be like, follow my page because follow me as I follow Christ, you know? And I think that's kind of how we as believers should use social media, is like follow us, follow our social media as we follow Christ. And it should be a journey about what Christ is kind of doing in your life and how you can use it for the positive. But on the other end, like one of the influencers that I follow, all she posts are just a bunch of clothes, and then she has an Amazon store where you can go and get all of her clothes. Every single thing is linked there. And so for Kylie Jenner, like what her page is all about is like her makeup that she uses, the products that she is using. But like the thing that I think you have to be careful of is, what is she selling? Something that's probably not real. Is she herself like a real individual, or is she buying into the idea that culture dictates what beauty is, instead of that we have all been made wonderfully by God? And I just think that there has to be a lot of caution with that. And so for our students to interact with influencers, I think the main question is simply, does the influencer mimic what Christ wants us to live by? And if that answer is no, then I don't think they should be following them.
That's good. And I think parents need to realize there's really been a paradigm shift in terms of celebrity culture for teenagers. That, you know, back in my day of Generation X, that, you know, you'd clip out a celebrity picture out of a magazine and put it up on your wall. If you liked NSYNC, like, sorry, Bobby Pell. Then,
that's right.
then you stick their picture up on their wall and you just gaze at them and you want to be like them. But in Generation Z, the interaction with celebrity cultures, you can literally interact with those celebrities. You can try to be like them. You can buy the things that they like. And most parents probably don't realize this, that the most popular shopping for teenagers right now is actually off Instagram. That it's a growing trend that more and more teenagers are buying junk off Instagram that influencers are pushing. And teenagers want to buy stuff off Instagram.
That's right. All they have to do is, so like the blogger that I follow or the influencer that I follow, all she does is hit swipe up. And so they will post, like influencers will post in their story. Let's just say it's a new shirt or new pants or something like that. They'll post it, and then like that influencer is being paid to model it. And then they like hyperlink where you can buy it. And so then they're in the Instagram app and they're buying that particular item. It's insane. And so I just think there's just so much to be cautious of whenever there's influencing going on. But I read this earlier. I don't know if I read it or listened to it in a sermon, but someone had said something about how if anything, influencers are influencing us to only want more. That's all that they're doing. And because all that it's pushing we're never satisfied culture, because the influencer's job is to tell you your life can be better with this. And well, what was it? Just 5 seconds ago? Was my life not great? Because you just said if I got this product, my life was going to be great. Now you're telling me if I get this product, my life is going to be great. All it's doing is reiterating this desire of I'm never going to be satisfied. And again, the depression, like you had mentioned earlier, that's just feeding that. I don't have this. I have to have it. I long for this, when that longing is only fulfilled in Christ.
Thanks for joining us today on the Northwoods Church podcast. If you'd like some more information on our ministry at Northwoods Church in Evansville, Indiana, please visit us online at www.northwoodschurch.org. Again, that's www.northwoodschurch.org. We'll see you next time.